recording now. There we go. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dawn. So, hey, everybody, my name is Steve Burchett. We're going to be talking a little bit today about creativity. Is this something that can be learned? Is this something that can be unlocked? And if you're just now clicking in, as a reminder, this is intended to be a really interactive workshop. So absolutely encourage everybody to raise your hand or shout out if you've got an answer. And then if you want to be a little more laid back, we welcome your answers and your thoughts in the chat. So that's grateful as well. So before any questions or anything before we get rocking and rolling? Good to go? Right on. So the first question I have for everybody here, are you creative? Do you think you are creative? And I'm going to ask you to rate yourself and how creative you think you are on a scale of 1 to 4. And that scale being number 1 is for the most creative, right? If you're looking at the bell curve, those people who really think they do a pretty good job of turning on their creativity. Number 2, sort of somewhat creative. 3, a little, I can kind of be creative sometimes when I really need to. Or are you a 4 of, gosh, I am just not at all creative? So where do you rate yourself on the scale? Seeing a lot of 2s, some 1s, some 1.5s. I like the partial points. And I love seeing that we've got a lot of folks who are rating themselves in the top half. That's fantastic. It depends on the topic or situation. I understand that. Situational, sure. So for everybody who's rating themselves a 1 or a 2, awesome. I'm going to see if some of these tools and some of these tips can help you get into that, to Brian's point, get into that creative space a little more quickly or a little more consistently. And also going to see if we can, for those folks who maybe rated themselves a 2.5 or a 3 or a 4, can we maybe convince you that by unlocking your creativity at the end of the session, you can say, I would probably say maybe I'm a point higher, especially with some of these tools in mind. That's kind of our goal. So for anybody who rated themselves lower than a 2 or 2.5, the question I have for you next is, would you say that it was always this way? And the reason I ask that is so many of us, when we're young, are super creative, right? So many of us as children can just create entire worlds in our minds with a box or some chalk, right? There's a reason that the stick is in the Toy Hall of Fame, because so many of us did so many silly things with sticks in the yard. I don't know how many of mine were lightsabers or something as a child. So if you rated yourself a little lower, the question that I have is, if it wasn't always this way, if you also, like many children, had just that ability to imagine worlds in your backyard or in your recess playground, can we maybe reconnect with some of that and unlock it? And that's some of what we're going to be looking at today. So another question for everybody here. If you were, let's call it a 0.5 point or a point higher on that creativity scale, how would things be different? What parts of your life might be enhanced, whether work? And feel free to raise your hand if you want to say something verbally or speak up or drop something in the chat. What would be different in your life? What elements of life would be a little different? Work, home, play, hobbies, if you were able to more routinely access that creativity that we all had as children? Draw more, create more. I love that. Oh, cooking. Yeah, I love the idea of creativity in the kitchen. That sounds fun. Once upon a time, my son and I tried all different kinds of pizzas, and we found that apple and barbecue sauce was surprisingly good. The apples kind of cooked down like almost like pie style. I see people saying they'd be doing something different in their career. Almost everything in life would be different. Be able to have more fun. Very cool. Speaking more, right? If you're in Toastmasters, sometimes it can be hard to say, what do I want to do in this next Pathways thing? A published writer, love it. Love it. So meeting people, throwing different types of parties or going to different types of parties, I love it. So the idea here is, if we can, dancing career on TikTok, heck yeah. You could start that right now. Part of the reason I ask this is there value in this class? Is there something that you can get out of it that's of value to you? So the challenge that I kind of push back at you is say, if we can unlock your creativity a little more, then could you become a paid speaker, right? Could you write more? What are the things that this can add value to for you? So great to see so many answers. Thank you so much. So then as we look at that, right, there's a lot of ways that our lives might be a little different, things that might be enhanced. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of what we're going to walk through. Again, this is intended to be super interactive, but we're going to talk a little bit about what is creativity mindset? How do we get into that mindset and what does it mean? And second, we're going to do some activities that I think will take up the bulk of our time. We're going to do first some sort of low-level warm-ups to get our brains stretched, and then we're going to get into some a little more free flow, a little more potentially chaotic brain games, which I'm excited about. And then we'll close and we'll say, hey, if this is of value to you, how can I carry this forward? What next can I do so that if I got a little value here, it can continue to go through in my life and maybe enhance some aspects like we just talked about a little bit ago. So we're going to start off with the creativity mindset piece. If anybody has any questions or comments, feel free to say them or raise your hand or drop them in the chat. Anything else? Oh, I like Mary, drawing from others, trying to help others achieve their goals. Wow, very selfless. I love it. And somebody asked the question, can you be too creative? I would say no, as long as you also are then able to rein it back in. If you're like some of us ADHD folk who end up chasing squirrels, that can be a challenge. So first, let's talk a little bit about the creativity mindset and what that means. The first thing that I look at here is, can creativity be taught? And I'm not going to read all of this, but several studies, University of San Diego, things written up in Psychology Today. I know that the Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania, has done some pretty deep creativity research. And ultimately, what they end up finding again and again is very simply, and the reason we're having this class, is yes, it can be developed, it can be taught. It's like a muscle, it needs to be worked out. If creativity existed in the past, it can be learned, it can be unlocked. And some say it can be shut off and turned on. So let's talk a little bit about how we can turn on that creativity. So the first thing I want to talk about is super creative people will often be very careful in clearing their mind of distractions. Marcel Proust used to say that he would lock himself in a room and put in earplugs and shut the blinds so that he could super hyper focus on being creative. And Kafka used to say, I moved myself out of society, not like a hermit, but like the dead, so that I could be alone with my thoughts. And then here we got a picture of a kid fishing. Thomas Edison used to say that when he wanted to be creative, he would literally go fishing with no bait on his hook. And when asked why, he would say, because where I'm from, nobody bothers a man when he's fishing. And when there's no bait on the line, the fish don't bother you either. And that was a way he could kind of get away and let his creative mind go. So first step in the creativity mindset, and Brian, and maybe this helps trying to get back into it, is how can we, in an increasingly digitally overstimulated society, clear our mind of distractions? And if there's anybody there that's thinking, you know, this maybe still doesn't apply to me, I'm not super creative, let me, if I can, set aside a little bit of the anxiety. So first of all, it doesn't matter if you are a high-level graduate. Thomas Edison, again, over 1,000 patents in his life, never finished school. And even if you did finish school, you didn't have to be a good student. For example, Richard Branson, who has over 200 companies under his Virgin Group umbrella, dropped out at 16. I think we'd all agree that Steven Spielberg is super creative, right? Steven Spielberg was denied entry into film school and did eventually later on go back and get an honorary degree. But instead he said, gosh, I'm just going to do it. And if you ever have those days where you don't feel super creative, that's okay. You're not alone. Charles Darwin once had a pretty famous entry in his diary that said, today I feel very poorly and I feel very stupid and I hate everyone and I hate everything. And I think we all feel that way sometimes, right? So following up then again, so set aside that anxiety when you want to get into the creativity mindset, clear away your distractions, and let's start by going through a little test. Anything in the chat that we want to make sure we jump into?
No, I think we're good right now.
Yeah, let's say what it is to be creative. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Squirrel chaser, you and me both. And you say creative for yourself or for people. I think all of the involved, right? Anytime you need to harness that creativity, how can we do so? So the next thing I'm going to say is, Sergey asked the question, what is creativity? And as we get into some of the brain stretches, we're going to talk about that just a little bit. So I've got an apple up here to remind myself that Isaac Newton, who invented calculus at something like 23 years old, because he was stuck inside during a pandemic, once said, if it seems that I have seen far, that is because I am standing on the shoulders of giants. And the reason I think that's relevant is some of the most creative people in the world will tell you that creativity is nothing more than seeing connections between two ideas where maybe somebody didn't see those connections before. So all creativity really is connecting different ideas where maybe you didn't see that connection before. So let's talk about some ways we might do that. And let's play a little bit of a brain game. So something you can do when you want to spark your creativity and get it going is to do some word associations. So on the left, we've got 10 questions you might ask somebody if you are sitting across from them at a coffee table. Let's say this is somebody you met and you're having a second meeting where you want to get to know this person better. What are some very simple, basic questions you might ask this person if it's meeting one or meeting two? What's my name? Where are you from? What's your favorite color? What other questions do we have? Yeah, what's a hobby of yours? And again, you feel free to use voice chat or raise your hand or type something in the chat. What's another simple question you might ask somebody? How do you relax? Yeah, what do you do for a living? I like both of those. You know what? We're going to add those in here just because I like it. Okay. Let's see. How do you relax? That's a fun one. Favorite food? Yeah, there you go. All right. So then, as I kind of go back into the present, best vacation. Yeah, I like that too. So as we go back into Mary, let's save that one for the next slide. Great. So some of these simple questions here. What's my name? Where are you from? Favorite color? What do you do for a living? How do you relax? Now let's imagine if we paired these with different categories of things. So if we paired those things with the category of songs, can you think of a song that talks about how somebody might relax? Can you think of a song that talks about how somebody might relax? Walking on Sunshine, sitting by the dock of the bay. Yeah. Otis Redding was onto something. I had a friend come over the weekend, and the two of us together might have wasted away a little bit in Margaritaville. Don't worry, be happy. Hit me with your best shot. Great. Okay, so let's spark it up. Can you think of a song? Look at Row Your Boat. Think about number one. Can you think of a song that has somebody's name in it, either in the title or in the song? Lola. There you go. My Sharona. Joanna. Yeah, Gloria with the blues. Sarah, Sweet Caroline. Oh man, you guys are coming up with a lot of them. Roxanne. I haven't seen Layla yet. That's one I always like. All right, think of where are you from? Think of a place. Can you think of a song that mentions or specifically talks about different places? House of the Rising Sun. Shenandoah, Africa. Yeah, St. Louis, Kokomo. I always liked, got a gal in Kalamazoo. I always liked standing on the corner of Winslow, Arizona. That's very specific, right? Dock of the Bay there, yeah, exactly. Coming right back to it. It's that one works both ways. Hotel California, okay. So then, as just shifting this up, right? So here again, what we're doing is we're kind of stretching our brains and thinking of different connections on the road again. So if we were going to now think about a movie or a TV show that mentioned or referenced or talked about a specific color, you think of any movies or TV shows where there's a color in the name or specific to some of the elements of the movie or the TV show? Everybody's thinking, I like it. Hill Street Blues, I haven't thought of that one in a while. Purple Rain, Color Purple, Big Red Dog, yeah. The Clifford movie's coming out, Black Rose, Blue's Clues, Lady in the Blue Dress, White Queen, yeah. Those are some great ones. Red Shoe Diaries, love it. Yeah, Shades of Grey, White Queen, Black Hawk Down, yeah, there's a color. So immediately we're taking just different categories of questions and then different categories of things and pairing them together to come with Pretty in Pink, Grey's Anatomy. Yeah, you guys are flowing. So that's the entire purpose of this, right? Was to start getting our minds going, start getting our ideas flowing. Simple exercises like this, simple ways that we can kind of play games. And think about it. You could do this sort of thing in the car with your family, right? Think of what do you do for a living? And think of a book or a movie or a TV show. You know, House is all about, or the ER, all about medical field. There's tons of shows about firemen and police officers. Blues Brothers, yeah. So this is a kind of a neat brain game, very simple, that you can play, that can help us sort of awaken our brains and start to sort of unlock and wake up that creativity. You guys with me? Yeah, right. I'm seeing a lot of nodding. Love it. Love it. Okay, so now let's move, and we could certainly have added more categories, right? Imagine if you came up with 10 of each, and you really could kind of pair them and come up with some interesting things and just see what pops up to people. So now we're going to do a different thought exercise. So one of the things I like to do is look at creativity through different lenses. So I have a challenge for you guys. If I were to hold up this very simple, very basic, empty 12-pack of Coca-Cola box, if I were to say to you, hey, everybody, let's pair up or let's get in groups of threes, how many different uses for this simple box do you think you can come up with in 3 minutes? How many do you think you and your group would likely come up with? Throw a number out. Feel free to say it out loud or throw something in the chat. How many do you think you'd come up with? Hey, you got
20.
3 minutes. 25, 12. What was the answer?
20.
20, 12. There you go. My daughter does this in the car. I love it. 25, 8, 100, 50. There you go. Lynn's thinking big. All right. Now, what if I said instead to you guys, hey, the first group of 3 that can come up with 100 answers gets a $100 gift card? Does it change the way you see it? Does it change the way that you start thinking about how I want to be creative? So the challenge I have for you with the thought exercise here is, when you want to be creative, give yourself a big crazy number and know that writing for the wastebasket is fine, because really terrible ideas or silly ideas can lead to another silly idea or terrible idea that eventually leads to, I didn't think of that. Because as our neurons go and create connections, different things can spark other ideas. So Thomas Edison, again, using that example, if I believe the gift card is real, yep, I'll pull it out. So Thomas Edison, as another example, had many more thousands of ideas that he never came to fruition with. And every time he had an idea fail, he'd go back through his notebook and say, hey, did what I learned from this, could it potentially help one of these previous ones? Yeah, right for the wastebasket. Thank you, Annetta. So then the other thing I would say is, what else could you potentially do with this, right? Other than it holding something, what else could you do with it? What else could we use it as? Try to rethink its core purpose, right? You know, as a kid, didn't we all use shoeboxes to make a diorama? Yeah, could we use this? Could we make this as clothes? I don't know, it certainly wouldn't clothe me. Yeah, use it to make some art for the wall. Recycle it is absolutely another very simple use. Use it as storage, right? And then as you're safe footing, when the septic tank overflows to the basement, oh, Mary, that sounds tough. Flatten it, use it as a drop cloth. Yeah, sort of a very similar idea there. And one other thing I would say is, as you're trying to come up with these ideas, as we sort of look at it from different perspectives, does that help us to think of new things we might do with it? So as you are trying to rethink a current problem or a current sticky situation or a current something that you are very interested in being creative with, or thinking through a problem or obstacle, try to look at it, think through it, coming from all different kinds of directions. Because yeah, for sure, a cat would climb into this box, right? I could see Andy Warhol creating some stuff with this. Communication tube, I love it. So now you guys had already started to get into this. What if we destroyed it? What if we chopped it up? What if we tore it down? What if we cut it into lots of different pieces, or one piece or multiple pieces? What else could we do with it? And clearly you guys were already starting to think in this direction with things like clothes or art on the wall. Yeah, make it a puzzle. I don't know if cardboard would be a good fertilizer, but I like it. Let's try. It's organic, right? Yeah, practice, learn cool lettering. Use this to make some Coca-Cola graffiti. I love it. I love it. A weave placement for the table, slicing it into thin strips. That would be interesting. You guys are being super creative. I love it. I love it. Now, the final question I have, as we think about these different lenses or these different idea sort of frames we look through in order to consider different ways to be more creative, fireworks, earrings. The other thing I think when I say reimagine is, what if it weren't made out of cardboard? What if this were made out of kiln-fired ceramic? What if it were made out of, what if this was, have you seen those cakes that look super realistic? You know, what if this was a cake or made out of cookies? What if it were made out of 8-gauge steel? What could we do with it? And my point as a part of this thought exercise is, again, that's another lens we could potentially look through here at window shutter. Storage cube. I'm short. I could use this to get to step on something and reach up to the top shelf, right? A very simple use. Yeah, if it were plastic, it could be a little storage cube. Yeah, cut the front off and make some sort of diorama, making it decor. Sure. So the idea here, and thank you by the way for we sort of recycled or reused this box. Yeah, jewelry. I like that idea, and earrings. So the point here is, as you're looking to be creative, as you're looking to unleash your creativity, sometimes it can be helpful to consciously have a bunch of different filters or a bunch of different lenses in mind that you say, okay, this problem, this challenge, I'm going to look through it through these different lenses so that I can spark my imagination. Because again, remember, all creativity really is thinking of different connections or different ways to draw a connection between 2 points that maybe somebody didn't think of before. So if any of you use this for a mailbox or a planter or some paper mache animals, I'd love to see it. Please shoot me a note. Could be a Coke cooler. Yeah, if it were styrofoam, there you go. Throw it straight in the fridge, and then carry it with you to anything. I've got to coach baseball later, and gosh, it's hot, so that'd be perfect. So we're going to move on. We're going to do some different association exercises. I'm going to call on one person at a time because this kind of requires person at a time. So if you want to participate, I'm going to ask that if you go down to the reactions that you can choose. If you want to participate, click the reactions and hold your hand up, and then I'll call on you and see where we can go. Yeah, bird feeder, I love it. So first, before we get to the reaction, I'm going to walk through kind of what we're going to do here. So the idea is that by bouncing off different people and kind of using the idea of a telephone game, you can start with one idea and then sort of take little or big creative leaps and end up with something completely different. So what I would often do, if we were in a room together, one of the things I like to do with this workshop is to group folks up and then say, great seeing people raising your hand, thank you. I like to group folks up and then give everybody the same prompt and then having them go around in a circle, right? So for example, I might tell the first person, okay, when I say lamp, what's an associated word that comes to mind? And for example, somebody might say lava, like a lava lamp, right? And then I say, okay, what does lava make you think of? And the next person might say volcano. This is from a group that I went through. When I said volcano, what does that make you think of? And the person said Jimmy Buffett. Apparently that's a Buffett song. And then what does Jimmy Buffett make you think of? Somebody said a seaplane. Apparently he's got a seaplane that he can fly to all the fun little islands. So if we gave the word lamp to somebody different or a different group, we might end up in a very different trajectory, right? And that's wonderful. That's part of the essence of creativity, is finding those connections that maybe somebody else doesn't see. So we're going to start. I'm going to pop out here, and we're going to start with the word ocean. And I'm going to say, let's add some stuff in here. So we've got Deborah's hand is up first. Deborah, when I say the word ocean, what if you could take a bit of a creative leap, what comes to mind?
Beach.
Beach. When you think of the ocean, you think of the beach. Paul, you are next on my list. Paul, when you think of the beach, what's the next word that comes to mind for you? Paul J.
Hawaii.
Hawaii, okay. And then Willie, when you hear Hawaii, what comes to mind for you?
Luau.
Luau. Can I be invited?
Oh, yeah. All right.
Debbie, you're next on my list. When you think of luau, what comes next?
Pina colada.
Pina colada. I wonder if Jimmy Buffett inspired that one. Very nice. Very nice. Okay, now we're going to go in a totally different direction. and think about the word tree. What does that sort of spark or inspire? Next on my list, I have Jim.
All the different looks the trees have, from the bottom all the way to the top. They're very varied.
Tree. Oh, that's the problem. I figured it out. Tree. So, so you think about the variety of trees.
The variety and the variety of looks, yes.
Okay. Okay. So, Brian, when you think about something that has a variety of different looks, what pops
Euros,
to mind for you? Sorry?
Euro bills, Euro bills,
Can you say it one more time? I apologize.
Euros bills, like money.
They do look,
Euros.
yeah, they look very different. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let's see. We've got, scroll down here. I've got Jorge. Can you tell me, when you think of euros, what comes to mind?
Bitcoins.
Bitcoin. All right. I like it. And then Lynn, when you think of Bitcoin, what comes to mind?
Currency.
Currency. Okay, so we started from tree and ended up with currency. We started with lamp and ended up with seaplane. We started with ocean and ended up with pina colada. And as you might imagine, if we did this with different groups of people and kind of grouped everybody together, we might start with tree and come up with something completely different, right? And that's part of the beauty of the creative process, is that none of those answers are wrong, but they kind of highlight how when we get different people together and working together, and the importance of bouncing ideas off of each other, sometimes that can help us to find those connections or those different pieces that maybe we hadn't quite considered. So we got Bitcoin scams. Sure, we got whale, we have sand. It could be great for table topics. There you go, Paula. All right. So just for that purpose, I want to do tree. Bless you. I want to do tree one more time. So let's do this one for folks in the chat. Can anybody tell me, when you think of the word tree and you kind of take a creative leap, what's the next word that you think that's associated with tree? Joy. Tree and joy. That's interesting. Paper, family, money. I like it. Palm tree, strength. Tree folders. Shade. There you go. Kay loves trees. Very nice. Tree makes you think of writing. Very nice. So then think, speaking of trees, right? Think of how this is branching out. If we took each one of those as a branch and then followed those branches, how many different creative ideas could we get with tree branch, right? Animals, the animals that live in the trees or live beneath the trees. So we're going to sort of use this idea in a couple more slides as we do our final creative exercise together in just a little bit. So great ideas. I think you guys' minds are there, ready to rock. So what I want to do is, for those people who aren't as word focused when it comes to these word association exercises, some of us are more visual, right? I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Gardner scale of intelligence, or the idea that there's several different types of intelligence. I'm sure you've probably heard the question, if we judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it might live its whole life believing it's stupid. So to that point, we all have different strengths and skills. So some people might be more visual. If you are, I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of a visual doodling exercise. And again, this is really focused on how to sort of unlock and think differently in our brain. So imagine these doodles, these 3 doodles are handed to you on a piece of paper, and I tell you, these doodles are unfinished. Take your pen, take your pencil, and I want you to finish each of these 3 doodles. What item is there? So as you guys are looking at this, what could you turn these doodles into? What are you seeing? What comes to mind? What would you sketch? Walk in the woods, you get the river, sure, sure. Second one, does it look like a cat's whiskers? There you go. Third one could be a landscape. Yeah, make a light bulb. The wind is blowing. The first one looks like a catfish. I like it. Shark mouth. Yeah, some serrated teeth. A head of hair. Yeah, somebody got my swoopy hair going. An explosion in the middle. A light bulb explosion. Cat. I get that pretty often. A town on the first one. Landscape. A saw. Yeah, you've got the serrated teeth there. So one of the things I would ask you guys to consider is, what if we change the frame? remember we talked earlier about looking at things differently. If we turn these, instead of seeing jet ski water and a cat, what do you see now? Was what looked like cat whiskers or a bomb or a light bulb, is that maybe now spider legs or something else? So now, yeah, now downhill or a waterfall, sure. Cactus, there you go. And as you're trying to unlock creativity in yourself, as you're trying to look at your challenge or your struggle or your obstacle through different lenses, it can help, again, sometimes to turn things. It can also help, waterfall, road light, border, I love it. Eyelids. It can also help to maybe flip it completely upside down. Or, for example, what if we double it? What if we expand the size? What if this little swoop here was on one giant piece of paper? Instead of thinking of it as kind of the main image, it's just a small piece of the image. So again, taking these visual ideas, yeah, leaf, Christmas tree, diamond, fern, crevice, I like it. So as you look at these ideas, taking these items, turning them upside down, doubling them, turning them sideways, blowing up the space, can all be different ways that we can take these visual ideas and try to rethink them and try to challenge ourselves to see them in new ways, to be more creative. And one of the things I love is I'm seeing people who saw things one way the first time, when we turn them, now they're seeing three different things, right? And that is really the essence of creativity. So great job. I am going to ask for a volunteer to be our new entrepreneur creating a new company. Who is going to be our, do we have some votes for a volunteer? Anybody want to raise your hand if you want to be a volunteer? So our next creative ask, I promise it's not going to be too onerous. All right, we got three. I've got Willie first. I don't know if that means you went first, Willie, but we're going to start with you. So the question I have for you, Willie, is you are getting ready to start a new business, and this team here is your creative brain trust to help you get that business off the ground and get it branded. So the challenge I have for you, first question I have for you, Willie, is what is the product or service that we are going to sell as a part of your new business?
Cutting boards.
Cutting boards. I used one last night with my son and his girlfriend and I all made dinner. It was great. So we are going to we're going to do a branding exercise. We are going to create a business specifically around cutting boards. All right, we are all in the cutting boards business, or at least we are part of the Creative Brain Trust. And this sort of branding exercise is actually something that in my business, my partners and I own a digital marketing company where we help businesses sort of clarify their stories and get the right audience. So this sort of branding exercise is fairly common, things that we do. So when you think of cutting boards, what are some of the word associations that immediately come with that? Lynn, you had your hand up, didn't you? When you think of cutting boards, quality cutting boards, well, I guess that's the next question. Lynn and Willie, are we making quality cutting boards? Are we trying to make as many quickly as possible? Are they handcrafted? What makes these cutting boards special, guys?
Quality.
Functional.
So they're quality, they're functional. All right. Jim, can you jump in? You got your hand up still. Can you jump in with a thought on what's going to help our cutting boards? What's special about them? I've got you on mute if you can jump in. Durable, green, recycled materials. I love that.
Affordable.
Fine wood.
There
You
you go.
make some kind of sound when you chop on.
Make a sound.
Yeah, make some kind of weird sound when you're chopping it.
Kind of like the ping golf clubs have their different noise, right?
Yeah.
All right. So durable, easy to clean. Yeah, it could be creative form or shape. I like that idea. I've seen cutting board that look sort of like the US. Easy to clean, form, shape, creative. I like it. Okay, let's non-slip, antimicrobial. Yeah, things that you want on these. Easy on your knife, easy to store, so maybe not a super heavy wood. So those are elements that we might like in different cutting boards. Love it. So then the question I have is, how are we going to make these cutting boards stand out? What if we could kind of narrow this down to what are the 2 or 3 things that you think might make these cutting boards really, really unique or special, or as you look at these, what are the most powerful that might make you say, gosh, that is the cutting board I've got to have? Well, you go ahead and drop me a thought, or feel free to say it out loud. Which of these elements sound most powerful or interesting to you? Personalized. I like that idea. So easy to clean, shape, antimicrobial. Okay, so the key elements we're talking about are, what is it made of? Green materials. Somebody else mentioned bamboo or recycled.
Size.
Okay, I agree. I think that's one that would be powerful to me. Let's see. So I'm seeing the sustainably, yeah. So not just the materials green, Mary, but also the manufacturing. Let's see. So people mentioned the shape, the look, and it being maybe personalizable. Matches sort of. So now we're looking at sort of the aesthetics of it. And then I keep seeing from a functionality standpoint, the function, I'm also seeing, gosh, it's got to be antimicrobial, easy to clean, non-slip, easy to clean, durable. So now what we have here, tell me if I'm crazy here, but what I'm seeing here is the function has to be there. The aesthetic has to be there. And then green materials, this is kind of our story. All right. People mentioned sustainable. So we want a sustainable cutting board that looks great, potentially is personalized, matches my stuff, and it has the function that it's easy to, I mean, ultimately we keep seeing easy to use in different ways, right? It's not going to mess up my knife. It's antimicrobial. I can put it away. So let's say that we find a way to make these cutting boards and make them amazing. As you think of these key words, let's do another word association. So as you guys start thinking about a cutting board that is green and maybe bamboo or recycled or sustainable, are there any sort of fun or flavor or kind of think of writery words that can come into your mind and really be evocative or really paint a picture with 1 or 2 words that we might use as part of the brand name for our new cutting board company? You can always go, yeah, sure. For names, you can always go with the name of the owner, right? How many law firms and CPA firms are named after the people who founded it? Okay, so you got to be careful with bamboo. Make sure that we're covering it with the right quality. And that's a great point. What I would say, Sergey, is let's assume that we've done that. We've created the cutting board that meets all of these points and is fantastic. So the cut up, I would assume, now when I think of the cut up, I think of maybe something a little humorous or fun. Slice and dice. What about, let's focus specifically on the story. So we're right now, I think we're coming up with some good cutting board names. If we focus specifically on the story being green, recycled, sustainable, we've got the sustainable slice. And we don't even necessarily need a full name. So as I think of the story, what are keywords when you think of sustainable, green? What are some keywords that you think of? What other things, or what it doesn't have to be a name or a word, but what other things do you think of? What companies do you think of? What products do you think of? Do you think, man, they nail green, they nail sustainable? Willie's already jumping to Willie's cut above. So having nature or natural in the name, reuse, recycle, rethink. I like those ideas. Yeah, earth friendly, simple. Yeah. Healthy living. Okay. So we might want to go ahead. So we might want to use some of these keywords in our name. And now let's say we've got a really cool looking look and shape and color that can be personalized. We could potentially use some of those elements in the name. And as we think about the function, we want it to be easy to use. And I keep coming back to that sort of safety. It's antimicrobial. It's not going to slip and cut my hand. It's something that isn't going to bang up my knife. What are some keywords around the idea of safety that you have? Or this sort of, it's got just the right function. And I already see long lasting in there, which I think counts to function, right? I want to know that I'm getting a good value. Mother Nature's Kitchen, there you go. Willie is right there in Mother Cuts That Add. Nice. You guys rated yourself pretty high on the creativity scale to start. And now I see it. Nice work. Cuts at 9 more. Oh man, I can only type so fast. You guys are great. Yeah, healthy lifestyle. Last cutting board you'll ever own. You could definitely put that in the marketing message. The lifestyle cut above, the perfect cut. I think perfect's one of those things that incorporates a lot, right? What else could it possibly incorporate? So if this were something that Willie had come to non-stop slide, yeah, superior is a word that certainly functions in here. Superior, heavy duty. Last you'll own or last you'll buy. The good chop. I like it. So what I would do if Willie came to me and we were having this discussion, and we're running a little low on time, but what I would do, making the cut, I like it. So what I would do at this point is I would kind of let us finish out this discussion. Let's talk about the function. Let's talk about the story. Let's talk about the look and what it does that makes you special. Let's kind of continue workshopping and beating up those keywords and trying to put them together, or think of other elements that kind of encapsulate all those things. And everything we have here in blue, we've got some good starts. We could add on to that. Let's say we make a list of 20 potential names, right? Then what we could do is start comparing them against each other. Are there pieces we could pull from one or from multiple to put together something that maybe is even just a little more perfectly encapsulated this cutting board idea than what any of these have? Then the next step I would do is I might say, okay, we've narrowed it down to, let's say, our favorite 5 or our favorite 3. Then I would say, hey, let's get away from it for a while. Our heads are pretty focused. Let's let these marinate overnight. Let's let you think about them, continue to workshop them in our minds. Let's come back tomorrow or in a couple of days and kind of revisit, because often what we find is that a specific 1 or 2 kind of bubbled best ideas, our subconscious thinks about it and makes more connections and says, you know, for a lot of reasons, this one really is, to be a little corny, a cut above the rest of these other ideas. So that's one way that we can all use our creativity together to sort of stretch our brains and then come together with creativity to create something that's new and has never been there before. So kudos to you guys. Nice job. And as I sort of take a look at where do we go next from here, my question to you is, earlier on, you said, if I were able to unlock that creativity more often, I know Brian said, get into that creative space more quickly. A lot of you, I asked the question, if you were more creative, how would that affect your life? How would that affect your work? How would that affect your home? You guys had some great answers of things that you would do that are sort of creative side projects and hobbies. And some of you talked about how it would affect every level of my life, at Toastmasters, at home, at work. Then if you still think that's the case, and if you think that maybe some of these creativity ideas and games are worthwhile, what can you do? So the first thing I'm going to say is, if you are a little bit surprised, would using these sort of tools, would using these sort of tips and ways to stretch your brain and be creativity, would it be worth it to carry forward? One thing I'll throw out there is we found through a University of Michigan study that people who do various simple brain games, like even like a Sudoku or a Wordle, Words with Friends, those sorts of things, you know, or people that are learning a language where you do a little bit per day, on average, their IQ increases by 4 points from the time before they're doing routine games to the time after they're doing routine games. Yeah, Lori's saying so worth it. So if you agree, or if you think this is something you'd like to do, I'm going to share in the chat Debbie, if you have the ability to pull that out, yeah, there it is. We're going to share in the chat. This is so Indeed put out 18 creative exercises that are fun. You'll see some that look kind of similar. That's again, it's a free link. This is something that you can just kind of save in your browser and have there at hand when you want to spark some creativity. There are also ways, if you need to be super creative and you're on a time crunch, I recommend cheating. And of course, it's not really cheating, but there are lots of different companies that come up with these creativity brain games or creativity cards that, again, all they are is they're different lenses, kind of like what we looked at earlier, that say, hey, think of your challenge this way, or try this with your challenge. Like try getting together with 2 or 3 people and workshopping and sharing your ideas and knowledge. So try when you're talking in your group of people, try empathy tools, for example, that might help you encourage each other to bring out your best ideas. So when you need to be creative, check out those 18 exercises on Indeed. And if you want to go to the next level, check out some of these method cards from IDEO or several others, right? There's a Scamper methodology. There's something called Thinker Tools that I know people are really excited about and you get a lot of value out of. Any of those can help you to get into that creative state more quickly so you can solve your problems or do fun creative things like write or follow your hobbies on the weekends. And the last thing that I have for you guys is just the reminder that I think creativity, again, is just tying together and seeing a couple different points that maybe didn't immediately look connected before. And I like this idea that creativity is not something that's out there. It's not something we have to go find. It's something that we can open up within ourselves so that as we come back to our lives, as we come back to our work, as we come back to our home life, as we come back to our hobbies, the more creative we are, the more we can see those things through new eyes. So that's my challenge to you guys, is go out there, be creative, explore, dream, discover, and create. If you want that Indeed link, Debbie has put it in there. And thank you all very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Steve. That was wonderful.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Steve. It was wonderful.
We appreciate having everyone here. If you enjoyed today's session, please share that registration link with other people and they can join us for the rest of the week. Tomorrow's session is with first Vice President of Toastmasters International, Marek Mathiasen, and she is going to be talking about leading volunteer teams, not necessarily just Toastmasters volunteer teams, but any kind of volunteer team. So if you know anyone who does leadership, that's going to be a great session for them. Thinking creatively, we understand that even managers are leaders. And even if they're leading a paid staff, it doesn't hurt to know more about successful leadership tips. So we would be happy to have everyone for the next session. You probably all received a flyer with all 5 of our sessions for this week. We would be happy to have you for any of them. I see a couple of hands up. Let's turn off the recording and get some questions answered.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to share.